Welcome to Free State Central News. Today we are talking politics. My name is Khiba. Welcome to our show. We are speaking to the newly appointed national spokesperson of the Young Communist League of South Africa, which is also known as YCL. We're speaking to Mzwandile Thakhudi. Leader, welcome to our show.
All right, thank you so much, Khiba. I'm glad and greetings to your listenership and viewership.
Yes, let's start with the interview. You have been appointed as the national spokesperson of the YCL. This means you'll be speaking on their behalf from a national point of view. Your reaction to your recent appointment?
All right, thanks a lot. I'll just say I'm particularly delighted to serve our organization, the YCL, in the communication and battle of ideas space as national spokesperson. This is because, as the youth wing of the Vanguard Party, the SACP, we are aware that the ruling ideas are those of the ruling class. And in society like our own, our South African society, they are worth contesting in all key sides of struggle, like the media, printed and digital, like your own.
Sure.
In academia, legislature, the judiciary, the economy, and in all key sides of struggle, like in our community. I also am deeply appreciative of the confidence expressed by the National Committee to bestow such a mammoth task for me to discharge in our collective interest in pursuit for the struggle for socialism in our lifetime. So, briefly, I'd say that is my immediate reaction
Sure.
to the appointment.
Sure. You are tasked in a sometimes could be a very difficult task, especially if you don't have a good relationship with journalists, reporters, and media houses. But I'm definitely sure that you can handle this one. Moving into our second question, you have recently had a meeting as the national committee of this youth league. If you were to summarize some of the issues that you were dealing with in that particular meeting, what was happening in that meeting?
Like we have said, Khiba, national committee meeting, like we've had the second plenary session since our chief national congress that was held in Fort Hare, Elite Chambers.
Mm.
It's a platform wherein we assess and analyze a political discourse, both domestically and globally, in terms of the developments. Of course, like I've indicated earlier, that we are not necessarily we are in the ideas of the ruling ideas are those of the ruling class. So as we are in pursuit of socialism, as what we would say is the direct route to socialism and to communism. So we ought to, from time to time, also analyze the international balance of forces to take us to is our revolution on course, or is it stagnant, or are we progressing in terms of the work we do? But largely part of the discussions we had, like it was on the month of the workers, the May Day, we had to reflect on some of the incidences that would have taken place, and the YCL National Committee congratulated COSATU for hosting successful May Day activities countrywide, and we viewed these rallies as successful in the sight of the workers, despite some purported disruptions that some naysayers are preoccupied by. we say that these were purported firstly because the workers can disrupt their own rally. Secondly, in its nature, May Day belongs to the workers, and in this case, the workers took charge of their events to ensure their success. They did so by demonstrating their displeasure with the silence of the sixth administration on their plight in the matter of Sibanye Stillwater, for the employer's reluctance to really offer workers R1,000 demand. But subsequently, we get media reports that are saying that the same employer is offering the CEO over 300 million on bonus. And part of the discussions, we observe that this is alarming, since now the World Bank has released a report on inequality that would have shown South Africa is one of the most unequal societies in the whole globe.
Mm.
So we also congratulated COSATU as part of the discussions we're having. COSATU Young Workers Forum for having held a successful national summit wherein they elected a new leadership, and they had allocated a specific session for a YCL centenary program to show that indeed we are still reliable allies. But also importantly, the National Committee reflected on the scourge of gender-based violence that we're observing in the country, wherein our issues of highlighting our communities, our public areas are becoming now slaughterhouses, wherein we find women and children are being victims of this crime. So the YCL on this score, we called really for the law enforcement agencies to really implement measures to ensure that they're able to can protect the inhabitants of the republic. And we called on the judiciary to also give maximum sentences on some of these or perpetrators. I'd say also we observed in the National Committee, because this National Committee took place in the first week of May, just after the birthday of our late National Secretary, Comrade Rufus, who was cowardly assassinated by a parcel bomb in Mozambique. So the National Committee observed that moment and really reflected. But lastly on this question, I would say the National Committee also reflected on the questions related to the Parliament being one such an institution that is important for transformation agenda of the country. However, we view some of the gains that would have made in the legislative front as having been reversed. That was saying primarily having observed our failure to really amend Section 25 of the Constitution. That is the property clause, because we view this as an important aspect wherein we could be able to enhance the productive capacity of the country, that we're able to can generate necessary growth and can be able to create employment. So those were some of that is just a synopsis of the discussions we would have had in the National Committee. Obviously, considering the fact that the YCL is turning 100 years, it's centenary month this month.
Sure.
We will be having a cake cutting ceremony in Tshwane on the 25th of May, a centenary rally in Rustenburg on the 28th of this very month.
Sure. Speaking about that, Rustenbeck, because I want us to tap into the issue of May Day, since we are also still on this month of workers. We have witnessed what happened there in Rustenbeck. Listening to what you are saying, it seems like you have received that as something that distracted that celebration or that observation of that day. But one of the other things that we can be fair about, especially if we were to talk about challenges that are faced by workers, is that at times there are allegations and very strong and serious allegations of unfair treatment, allegations of wages, allegations of inequality, especially also in the private sector in this industry of mining. Now, as the YCL, if you were to advise the administration of the President Cyril Ramaphosa, in terms of handling such issues, what is it that you would say? Because this is still a burning issue. They are still protesting there at that particular mine.
What you would say on that score, Khiba,
Mm.
is to say that the democratic breakthrough brought about particular gains, especially in the front of the legislation. Like, for instance, if you look at the Labor Relations Act, the legislation like Basic Conditions of Employment Act that would govern the relations between the worker and the employee are there as some of the critical advancements that would have been made. The establishment of the bargaining councils and all those sorts of things. And we're saying they are important instruments that will govern this relationship. And then it is important in the context of now the current crisis of our South African economy, of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, the rising fuel prices, inflation, and all that.
Sure.
That there is consideration for the plight of the workers, that the value they produce, they must be able to be compensated
Mm-hmm.
adequately, that they can be able to sustain a livelihood that is of dignity and of respect. So we will say the government is ought to really consider intervening on the score of the questions related to the Sibanye Still Water as it is. Because the workers are very clear and we have our principled solidarity towards them for our constituency, the youth, are the inhabitants or the dependents rather
Sure.
of those workers who are there, and they can no longer really support us to go to seek employment elsewhere or to seek opportunities in the higher education space, because they would always give us transport money to go to want work or to go to seek for space in a TVET or a university space. So we really are sympathetic to their cause. Their struggle is indeed our struggle. So we're calling on our government to really intervene in this scope.
Sure. Speaking about the government, in your meeting, which took place, I assume, during the weekend or over the weekend, you had the Minister of Labor, Tulas Ngesi. Did he say anything about this incident? Since, well, it is also relevant to his department, which is the Department of Labor.
I say on this presentation that we just received, largely the discussions were centered around the state of youth unemployment. However, the government did signal that attention is being given to the matter, and we are hopeful for the prospects of this interaction.
Mm. Okay. One of the other issues that I wanted us to deal with, it is your impact as the Young Communist League of South Africa, which I believe in most cases you are dealing with issues that are challenging young people. So let's focus on the social issues that young people are facing, especially when we talk about issues of drugs, alcohol abuse, and unemployment. How are you addressing such issues as a youth league that is supposed to speak about the agenda of young people?
All right, no, thanks, Khiba.
Hmm.
One thing I'll say is that as the YCL, we were strong and have a footprint in every district in our country. And by far, we are the most united force in the country, most stable in and among the youth structure, with fully fledged and functional subnational structure. And we are the most consistent youth representative organization because uh, showing our ideological orientation and inclination from the party, the SSCP that struggles for socialism. You could say that our class allegiance to the youth and workers has been consistent, and our structures carry out campaigns weekly in response to the youth plight, ranging from access to quality education, which we carry out through our Youth Love Right to Learn campaign, which this year we have said it is a year-long campaign wherein we ensure that new streams of education, teaching and learning, whether basic and higher education, there is student support, they are enablers can really get learners to succeed while they are within the system. The ID campaigns we roll out, the campaigns against drugs and alcohol abuse, substance abuse, such things, jobs for youth, the land campaigns, the career guidance and exhibition campaigns that we roll out throughout the country. So we can say, of course, as the YCL, we are an engaged organization, consistent organization.
You have less than 1 minute.
Lastly, our Operation Cooler, wherein we encourage more and more young people to join the YCL, is also ensuing and ongoing. So one can really say the YCL is really making strides in the championing of youth interest in this particular country, and we are still determined and committed to implement our 12 youth fronts in order to consolidate building blocks for socialism in this country, to develop it to be a socialist country in our lifetime.
Sure. The newly appointed national spokesperson of the YCLSA, Mzwandile Thakhudi, right there. Mzwandile, let me thank you for your time and also for sharing what you have discussed, 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 discussed.